Hello, everybody. President Trump literally just announced it would be his honor to provide funding for food stamps. We've got the late-breaking details. I'm Elizabeth Vargas, and America's News starts right now.
Tonight, 2 federal judges say President Trump must pay for SNAP benefits that are set to end in just hours.
It's their fault. Everything is their fault. It's so easily solved.
Will the prospect of 42 million Americans going hungry finally force Democrats and Republicans to end the government shutdown? Then, how AK-47s, online chat groups, and a reference to Pumpkin Day led the FBI to make several arrests of people they say were planning a terrorist attack in Michigan.
We're catching people before they ever start, yeah.
We've got the details. And later, a journalist who claims she brought down Prince Andrew by exposing his astonishing emails to Jeffrey Epstein is here to tell her story.
Happy Friday. We begin in Washington, where on Halloween, much of our nation's capital feels like a ghost town. The halls of Congress are eerily vacant as a haunted house, largely because the majority of lawmakers have decided not to come together to reopen the government. It is a decision that has conjured the specter of hunger for tens of millions of Americans. 42 million people rely on food stamps, a truly astounding number. Nearly 40% of them are children, and more than 1 million other recipients served in the U.S. military. The food assistance was due to run out in less than 5 hours from now. That was until 2 federal judges in Rhode Island and Massachusetts stepped in this afternoon and ordered the Trump administration to keep the program funded. To do that, the Trump administration will have to dip into contingency funds set aside by Congress, kind of like an emergency savings account of $6 billion. That alone won't be enough. SNAP benefits cost the government $9 billion a month. So the government has been ordered to dip into other funds to meet the shortfall. President Trump responding to those court orders just now, posting, "If we are given the appropriate legal direction by the court, it will be my honor to provide the funding." And speaking of SNAP, President Trump says the government in its entirety could, quote, snap back into shape in an instant, he says, as soon as the Democrats play ball.
They've never done a thing like this. They've become crazed lunatics. All they have to do is say, let's go, let's open up our country, and everything snaps back into shape. So there's something wrong with them.
Now, all this comes after a late-night social media rant by the president calling on Republicans to deploy the, quote, nuclear option, that being the complete removal of the filibuster. "Get rid of it now," he posted. "It would immediately end this ridiculous country-destroying shutdown. If the Democrats ever came back into power, it will be done the first day they take office, regardless of whether or not we do it." Now, eliminating the filibuster means that senators would no longer need 60 votes to reopen the government. They would just need 51, a simple majority. The filibuster question, though, is a perennial quandary for the party in power. Eliminating it with the nuclear option would provide short-term benefit of being able to pass whatever the power and party wants, but it also carries the long-term risk of seeing that same power used against them when the opposition returns to power. And that is why Senate Majority Leader John Thune has repeatedly called that nuclear option a bad idea. But of course, history of Washington is rife with examples of bad ideas that became bad laws. Here to help us make sense of all of it is Leland Vittert. He's NewsNation's chief Washington anchor and host of On Balance. Leland, great to have you on the show. I want to ask you, first of all, about this moments ago post from President Trump. 2 federal judges ruled today that the Trump administration must use the emergency funds passed by Congress to fund food stamps. And the president just posted this statement saying if he's given appropriate legal direction, he'll do it. Is this a capitulation? What is this?
No, not at all, because I think the second part of this True Social post, he says that the judges need to clarify how they can legally fund SNAP. I had a long discussion with some very well-placed sources earlier today. It is the position of the Republicans that the contingency funds are not allowed by Congress, are not legally allowed to be used for SNAP benefits. So the question would be, can the court effectively not overrule a decision by the president, which is what Democrats are saying this is, but overrule how the contingency fund was put in place? And they're making the point that this is separate from how the contingency funds are used to pay the U.S. military, because DOD is given a lot more discretion, or Department of War is given a lot more discretion in how they use their contingency fees. So I think that's why you're seeing this very careful language by the president, which basically says the court needs to tell us how we can legally do this. They're saying their hands are tied.
So too soon for people on food stamps, that would be 42 million Americans, to celebrate.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. You've been taking the temperature in Washington all day, and you are hearing that this nuclear option that the president has been on a tear about is dead on arrival on Capitol Hill, despite all of Trump's media posts.
Yeah, my sources tell me that they're about 15 votes short in the Republican caucus. So obviously, none of the Democrats will vote for this, although there was some talk of John Fetterman a couple of weeks ago who said he might vote for it. But my sources inside the Republican caucus in the Senate tell me that they just don't have the votes to do it. On top of that, as you laid out in your open, I think very well, the fear among Republicans of doing it, that Democrats will then do it back,
to them.
And the laws of reciprocity say, don't do unto others what has been done unto you, but do it worse. So rather than for funding, it would be used for some kind of legislative priority, something on abortion or something like that. So Republicans are quite loath to go down that route.
Yeah, it's not just that there aren't enough votes to pass this banning the filibuster. Leader John Thune has made this a priority, preserving the filibuster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. But that's why I think it's a twofold thing. I think, number one, they don't have the votes to do it. Number two, they want to preserve the filibuster. You can argue chicken or egg here, but the fact of the matter is the votes don't exist, and my sources tell me they probably won't exist for an extended period of time.
I want to get back to the food stamp issue, Leland, because it's so striking. 1 in 8 Americans are on food stamps. That's 42 million people. And contrary to what you see on social media, where there's a lot of wrong things said often, most of the people on food stamps are working. They have jobs. They're just low-wage jobs. How does the richest country on the planet have 42 million people who need food stamps to eat?
Well, it's a great question. You could turn it around and say how great it is that our country is willing to feed 1 in 8 people. There's no other country in the world that's coming close to doing that. Those that tried, Venezuela, Russia, or the old Soviet Union, Cuba, haven't done so successfully. So I think, if anything, the SNAP program, or EBT, or food stamps, whatever you want to call it, is proof of America is great because we are good and compassionate to our fellow citizens. The deeper point, I think, of what you're pointing out is the income inequality issues, and the idea of grocery bill voters. I said that yesterday to Chuck Todd on the program. We always look for who's going to be the deciding electorate, right? There was always that time about soccer moms, and there's sort of like, this is going to be the group of people who will decide an election. I think you may be coming to a place pretty soon here where grocery bill voters are the ones who are just angry, understandably so, as you point out, to be living in the world's richest country but still struggling to buy food,
right,
that will decide the next election.
Hey, super quick, polls show that nearly half of all Americans blame President Trump and the Republican Party for this shutdown, but 37% blame Democrats, and now nearly half of Americans say they are extremely worried about this shutdown. Who's going to blink first?
Democrats.
When?
That's my reporting. That's my reporting is that next Wednesday or Thursday they want to get through the election because Democrats want to show their base that they can stand up to Trump. So once Tuesday's election for Virginia and New Jersey governor is over, Chuck Schumer, my reporting shows, will take the handcuffs off and allow probably 15 or 20 Democrats to vote with Republicans to reopen the government.
All right, let's see if that in fact happens. It's right here. We can roll back the tape. Leland Vittert, have a great show tonight in just a couple hours on Balance You. Don't forget to watch it here on NewsNation. Thanks, Leland. Meanwhile, several people are under arrest tonight for allegedly plotting a possible terror attack over Halloween weekend. FBI Director Kash Patel says, quote, multiple suspects were arrested in Michigan this morning. Federal agents were seen in Dearborn and Inkster, two suburbs of Detroit. According to investigators who spoke to the Associated Press, they believe the plot was inspired by ISIS. They're reportedly looking into whether the suspects were radicalized online. There was apparently a conversation in a chat room about carrying out an attack. They referred to it as a Pumpkin Day event. According to sources, President Trump commended federal law enforcement for acting quickly.
Mr. President, on the FBI reporting that terrorist attack in Michigan that was said to happen over the weekend, Halloween weekend, the FBI...
We're catching people before they ever start, yeah.
So could this have been the next deadly terrorist attack? And what does it mean for our national security? Former FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon joins us now. Bobby, first of all, the details around this are very, very slim as of this hour. But we do know that there was apparently an undercover FBI agent who was in a chat room and was listening in to some sort of planning. First, how common is it for FBI agents to be going into these kinds of chat rooms?
Well, it's common in areas where there are certain levels of threats being leveled, and we know where those are generally, even on the dark web. And so that's a newer tactic of the FBI is to be able to infiltrate those rooms, go in there, not only listen or watch these conversations as they take place, but maybe sometimes participate in some of these and see whether or not there's legitimacy to this conversation. Are they really trying to do this, or is this just bluster?
And obviously posing as somebody sympathetic to the cause.
Absolutely. As an undercover agent, just like an undercover agent would be out in the street in a disguise or acting like somebody else, they do the same thing online.
So we also know that an undercover agent reportedly went with the suspects or trailed them as they went to a shooting range. And it was at that point, even though there are reports police were not sure what any planned attack might entail, it was at that point they arrested them because of these references to Pumpkin Day and the fact that they were at a shooting range. They didn't want to take any chances.
That's right. And because you do have a balance in some of these, there's a lot of this online conversation taking place. And then you go, okay, who are these people and do they actually have the means to carry out this? You don't want to chase every group that's just blustering out of there on the internet trying to act tough. And so the minute they go to a shooting range, and supposedly reportedly they were using AK-47s and practicing, rapid reloads on those rifles. So at that point, then you have to take it down because now they have the means and probably the will to carry out an attack. And if you don't know where or when exactly this is going to take place, you have to take them down as quick as you can.
There's intent and then there's capability. We don't know if these suspects had the capability to do anything, but it's clear the FBI agents felt they definitely had the intent.
Yeah, the intent is usually there and the capability is the actual one you have to, and that's the double-edged sword. How long do you let them go in planning to the point where, because the defense is always going to say, well, they were just bragging, they were trying to look tough to each other, they never really were going to be able to carry this out. We had that in the Fort Dix attack several years ago. That was the defense. So you have to let them kind of go along the road of carrying this out, and you have to be able to show that they in fact did have not only the intent, as you say, but also they did have the capability. I think, as you alluded to, when they saw them going to a firing range, that's when they said, these guys have the weapons and we have to take them down.
The FBI reportedly believes these suspects were all radicalized online by ISIS. Does ISIS target people in the United States?
Well, what ISIS does is, and what they've done for a number of years, is they put the information out there and they don't maybe target specific individuals, but they're targeting groups of people and populations of people, young people in particular, that are kind of disaffected or, disillusioned with the government or things like that. So they put that information out in those areas and on those websites and in those chat rooms that they know are gathering places for people that are going to be prone to believing that ideology.
Well, that leads to my next question, because these arrests happened in Dearborn, which does have a large Muslim population. And just this past May, the FBI arrested a man in Dearborn who said, the FBI said he spent months planning an attack on an Army base near Detroit. There is some reporting that there might be some link between this man who was arrested and charged in May and the arrest that just happened this morning.
Yeah, we're not sure what that link is, whether or not they just referred to this individual in their conversations or they actually had contact with him prior to his arrest or even since his arrest. We don't know what that connection is. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not they got a tip following that investigation that led them into this group, or if they work that lead backwards to that person.
Right. How did they find this chat room? There's a million chat rooms, millions of them, I would imagine, on the internet. How did you find this specific one to infiltrate with an undercover FBI agent? It's also worth remembering we started this year, 2026, with an ISIS-inspired terrorist attack, a man who was also radicalized online by ISIS and drove that truck through a very crowded street in New Orleans, killing people.
Yeah, it works. It's a tried and true tested method that ISIS has. That's why they continue to do it. And you know, we're not at the end of this thing. We need to have better ways of monitoring these conversations that are leading to these types of attacks. Now, sometimes when you have a group of people like this case was, it's easier to infiltrate when they're like the person you just referenced, the person in New Orleans who acted alone. It's more difficult because they're generally not in conversation with others that can be intercepted or monitored, and you don't see it.
Right. The lone wolf attack always being the hardest to stop because it's the hardest to detect. Bobby Chacon, really appreciate your expertise. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Coming up, we have new details about that New Year's Day fire in the Pacific Palisades. Were firefighters ordered to abandon a small brush fire, even though they were concerned that it could spell disaster? We'll have more on that. Later, an eviction, a demotion, and an expulsion. After years embroiled in the Epstein scandal, Prince Andrew is now, heaven forbid, just like Andrew, a lowly commoner like the rest of us. The journalist who says she exposed the emails that brought him down joins me next. Sometimes there's no one to blame for natural disasters. We chalk them up as acts of God. Other times they can be chalked up as acts of human incompetence, negligence, or good old-fashioned stupidity. Tonight, there's more reason to suspect the dangerous fires that reduced so much of Los Angeles to ashes belong in that second category. We are learning that firefighters were told reportedly to leave a small brush fire in California, even though they voiced concerns that it was, quote, a bad idea. And they were right. The embers from that first small fire, which were hidden underground, eventually became the deadly Palisades inferno that killed 12 people and burned thousands of structures across 3 major towns. According to the LA Times, firefighters were concerned that the embers underground would reignite, and they did, with disastrous consequences. So were their concerns ignored, and could different decisions have saved lives? NewsNation's Rich McHugh now joins us. Now, you've been following this story for quite some time. What's this new information?
Hi, Elizabeth. Well, it sure looks like the narrative of this Palisades fire is kind of like blowing up before our very eyes, and it sure looks like this could have all been preventable. Earlier this week, we learned that hikers atop the Palisades found that burn scar was smoldering, and that was days before the Palisades fire ignited. Now, text messages from firefighters suggest they were told to roll up their hoses and pull out on January 2nd after that New Year's fire, what they call the Lockman fire. The text messages, according to the LA Times, suggest that firefighters told their battalion chief that the ground was still smoldering and rocks remained hot to the touch, and that the battalion chief had been told it was, quote, a bad idea to leave. Despite that warning, they were ordered to leave. Then, a week later on January 7th, the fire reignited and would become the Palisades fire, the worst in LA's history, taking 12 lives and 6,800 structures. But the Los Angeles Fire Department was adamant they completely put out the earlier fire. Now, Spencer Pratt, who lost his home in the Palisades, posted some of these texts from current firefighters weeks ago. He and Gabriel Mann, who directed the documentary Hot Shots, have been communicating with current LA firefighters and posting about it. Mann says one of their sources, who asked to remain anonymous, confirms all of it.
When he was on scene, he saw multiple smoldering stumps, red hot coals, stuff that would not be considered mopped up properly for a wildfire this size. He communicated this to his battalion chief, and he was even trying to dump water that was still left in the uncharged hoses just to try to put this stuff out. And he was told to pick up the hoses and get out.
But Mann and Pratt, in a new text that they shared with NewsNation, say this firefighter takes it a step further. He writes, "The city could have done better. However, we're super busy and understaffed. The state should have been there to assume command. This highlights the lack of unified command and proves that the state and local agencies have huge gaps in managing the urban interface brush that led to the Palisades fire." This firefighter obviously echoing what we heard earlier in the week from the lead plaintiff attorney, Roger Bailey, saying ultimately the onus here, Elizabeth, is on the state. Now, we reached out to Los Angeles Fire Department. They did not respond to our request for comment, nor did Gavin Newsom's office when we asked them for a comment as well. Back to you.
All right. But it sounds like this latest reporting says the responsibility might also be, it's not just the state, it's also the city or the county for leaving the fire, that even though, or being ordered to leave.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
There's multiple errors here, Elizabeth.
Wow. Rich McHugh, great reporting. Thank you so much. All right, the latest now on the scandal rocking the House of Windsor as we learn more about what actually led King Charles to expel his long-disgraced brother Andrew. Buckingham Palace released this statement today. It says King Charles has started the process to remove the style, titles, and honors of Prince Andrew. A fancy and very British way of saying Andrew was no longer a prince and has to get out of that 30-room mansion he's been living in rent-free for years. Andrew will now be simply referred to as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's the first time since World War I that the royal family has expelled one of its own. The 65-year-old will remain eighth in line to the British throne, so you can be sure the British people will be praying for the continued health of the other seven. Andrew will be leaving this lavish Windsor mansion. Instead, he'll head 100 miles north of London to a rural property on the royals' Sandringham estate. He will no longer have a staff or a valet. Oh, imagine doing your own laundry. So why this demotion and exile now? For 15 years, Andrew has been a 210-pound embarrassment for the palace. Royal insiders say the relentless drip, drip, drip of accusations, denials, and missteps and embarrassment surrounding Andrew and his relationship with the convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein, it all just finally boiled over, fueled in part by fresh allegations in the posthumous memoir of Virginia Giuffre, to be released next Tuesday. She is the prominent victim of sex trafficking by Epstein. She died by suicide in April. Her book included claims that Prince Andrew had sex with her on 3 separate occasions when she was just a young teenager, underage. Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing with Giuffre. Add to that newly revealed emails to Epstein, not only from Andrew, but from his former wife, Sarah Ferguson. Those emails were uncovered by one of Sarah's former friends, a journalist and socialite named Daphne Barak. The emails go back to 2011, after Jeffrey Epstein's 2008 conviction and stint in prison. And they reveal a warm and ongoing friendship between the three, despite vows from Andrew and Sarah that we have nothing to do with him anymore. In one exchange, Sarah Ferguson, who was part of several children's charities, called Epstein a dear and supreme friend. In another, Prince Andrew tells Epstein, "We're in this together. We'll play again soon." Remember, at this point, when those emails were sent, Epstein wasn't just fending off allegations. He'd been convicted and incarcerated for having sex with a minor. Most people with any kind of reputation to protect would have nothing to do with that pedophile long ago. But not Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. Why? Earlier, I had the chance to ask Daphne Barak about all of it. Are they clueless, Andrew and Sarah, about how bad this is? It just feels like they're not taking any of this seriously. From Epstein's crimes to their own behavior to the accusations that have been leveled against them by the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, it doesn't appear they're taking any of this seriously.
I think what's happening is that we're looking back, Elizabeth. It was 2011 when she wrote this email to Jeffrey Epstein, and he wrote this email to Jeffrey Epstein a day after, which I unearthed a day after his photo with Virginia Giuffre. By the way, Virginia loved me and trusted me, and I liked her a lot. But after his photo, this Mail on Sunday made it public. It was just a few hours afterward. And he was still age. He was still an ambassador of trade for England, the favorite son of the Queen. Sarah had millions of pounds of debt, as usual. But he was still very entitled. I think he thought he was invincible. He thought nothing could ever touch him. When I saw the email that we unearthed 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks after Sarah, I didn't believe it. He was signing HRH, the Duke of York, KG, which is a Knight of God. When he's sending to a pedophile after the photo with Virginia Giuffre, we are in it together and we will play more soon. Could you believe this?
Play more soon. Play more soon. All right. That email Andrew sent to Epstein was in 2011. Here is what he said in 2019 about cutting off contact with Epstein in 2010. He's saying he never had contact with Jeffrey Epstein from that day forward in 2010, when he was photographed walking in Central Park with Jeffrey Epstein. That is a lie.
And think of Elizabeth, he was inviting BBC. By the way, I'm a star of a BBC series for 2026. I have permanent BBC contract. He was inviting BBC cameras to Buckingham Palace. He was still a working royal. And from the most official residence of the Queen, he was lying for the nation. I mean, just like unbelievable. I don't understand that. And Emily, the reporter, was very specific. Did you cut any relations? That means text message, emails, everything. So as you know, from the moment I unearthed the emails between Sarah and Epstein after she lied to the public with her interview with the Evening Standard that I cut any relationship with him, everybody knew it was just a matter of time that I'll come with Andrew. I think what happened to him, and I'm revealing it to you exclusively, the palace called one of my two papers after I revealed his email and said, how many emails Daphne has more? And my paper said, look, plenty. And I think that was the nail on the coffin. They knew there were lots of traffic. There was lots of traffic between Sarah, Andrew, and Epstein. Are we talking about more than 100 emails? Lots.
100 emails between Sarah Ferguson, Andrew's wife.
Emails, yeah.
Do you think, did King Charles wait too long to do this? Because, Daphne, there have been suspicions and accusations about Andrew for years. The public is furious. He's now under police investigation for ordering his private security detail to dig into Virginia Giuffre's background and find dirt on her when she first leveled her accusation against him. That is an improper use of police resources to ask them to go find some dirt on this woman who is a victim, let's remind everybody. Public sentiment is people have had it. The fact that he's living in a 30-room mansion that he's now going to be evicted from, but to go live in another nice house on a royal property and get an allowance from King Charles. Is King Charles going far enough? Did he wait too long?
I've known King Charles for a long time, and I've known Camilla's family for a long time. And I have a lot of empathy because he's battling cancer. I'm a cancer survivor. I just beat very tough chemo a few months ago, so it's a big comeback for me. And it's too much because mommy was protecting Andrew. I was getting text messages from Sarah that they were going every day to have lunch, Andrew and Sarah with the Queen, before she died. And suddenly that gone. There was problems because she told me in the middle of one night that they were trying to evict them from Royal Lodge. And she felt entitled. She said, my dogs, our dogs are buried there. I mean, Bill and I, my husband and I have 3 dogs. That's not a reason to live in a 100 acres publicly sponsored place. I mean, please. So, I mean, she lives in her own childish world. That's why maybe she wasn't also until this unfortunate thing happened, also of children's books. So it's very nice and it's very whatever. But she came to have lunch with me and my husband. And she just put 2 dolls.
All right, our thanks to Daphne Barak. We will continue to follow this story. Coming up, Chris Cuomo joins me live. But before we go to the break, our team here at Elizabeth Vargas Reports wishes you a very happy Halloween. And here are some of our youngest staff members and families. Take a look and enjoy. All right, on this Friday night, this Halloween, Chris Cuomo joins me now. Chris, you're not in costume. Are you dressed up as Chris Cuomo?
Boo.
Boo. I hear you have a crazy story in your show about Kim Kardashian. Please explain.
Listen, I don't have it in my show. I'm making a passing reference, okay?
Okay,
Look,
good.
The idea that social media is going crazy as if there's a debate between NASA, okay? NASA, like when you're growing up and you're saying, hey, look, the guy's smart. He's no rocket scientist. NASA and Kim Kardashian in a debate about whether or not America landed on the moon.
Come on.
This is a sign of the apocalypse, okay? I'm no Bible thumper, but when you have a gazillion people on social media and all these legitimate outlets platforming a debate between NASA and Kim Kardashian.
Why is NASA engaging with Kim Kardashian about something this ridiculous?
Because there's some failed media chooch like me who's now working there in the PR department who said, well, we gotta clap back. You know, we gotta clap back. You know, this stupid is so contagious. Well, Elizabeth.
And you wonder how these conspiracy theories take hold. All it takes is one person, you know, saying one crazy thing, and, you know, it's insane.
It's an information and attention economy. I mean, it's like we're trying so hard to destroy institutions and norms. And I get it-ish, but the whole idea of breaking something is to build it back better.
Yeah.
The whole reason that you take something down is because you're going to make something better. We're not doing that. We're just in the destruction phase. And this is a sign of the times.
All right. Well, I'm ready for the reconstruction phase, and I'm ready for your show. Chris, take it away.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.